Diagweeb Galer Accordia August Fáilte Road, and welcome to It's Showtime with me, Mary Honan. And my extraordinary guest today now is a young man, David Geaney. Originally, David is from Dingle or An Daingin in Kerry, and David is was a pupil of Rincorri na Riachta in Kerry, and under the tutelage of Jimmy Smith et al. And he won 5 World Championships titles with Rincorri na Riachta and World Irish Dancing Championships, and he's even gone on and he's made a complete career out of Irish dancing, and he's brought it to another level. A completely different genre of Irish dancing, with Irish dancing central, I suppose. But David, hello.
How are you doing? Thanks for having me.
Sure. Listen, it's, you know, how was the Irish there at the start? Because your Irish is your first language.
I tell you, it was beautiful. It was a lot better than mine these days.
I was a bit nervous talking in Irish at the start, My mother is fluent, but I'm not. And David, it's his first language is Gaeilge.
And it's a beautiful language, all right.
It is a beautiful language. What was it like growing up in Dingle or on Daingin? Do you call it Dingle or on Daingin?
I suppose Dingle or Daingin Uí Chuis, really.
Daingin Uí Chuis.
Yeah, Daingin Uí Chuis would have been the name we'd given it in Irish. But I suppose on Daingin for short. But I would have went to an all-Irish school when I was younger. So I would have been in primary school, it would have been all-Irish, and then secondary school it would have been a Gael school as well. So so I suppose I know no different. I kind of grew up with it. My grandmother spoke it as a first language, and she actually went to England when she was younger. She didn't have a word of English when she was 18. I suppose the family's always grown up with Irish around it. So I don't think I've ever lost it. I don't use it as much as I normally use it now because of the industry we're in. The pub industry is it's all tourism. So
your parents own
talking to Americans in Irish.
Your parents own Dingle's pub or Geaney's pub in Dingle.
Yeah, the Dingle pub is ours.
The Dingle pub.
So my parents own it. My grandparents owned it before them. It's been passed down through generation to generation, and I'm sure we won't get away without it being passed down to this generation either.
But speaking of your parents and your grandmother in particular, they were hugely instrumental. I think, as much as we knew you as, I was judging, and I've judged you many times, and you had the ability not just to be just the most beautiful male dancer, but you have a performance element to you that you can't teach. That is something that's completely innate, and I think Jean Kelly had that, even though we were talking there off camera. Fred Astaire was wonderful and absolutely extraordinary, but I think Jean Kelly had the showmanship that Astaire lacked, in my view, and the Nicholas brothers. I mean, and as you said, I hit on the right people for you because they were your influences. Were they really your influences?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. So I suppose my biggest influences growing up would have been those old films. So I would have always watched those kind of Fred Astaire, Jean Kelly kind of films, and like yourself, I would have been glued to the Nicholas brothers, and I know all the routines inside out. I'd love to recreate them someday, but then again, I'd be afraid I'd do them injustice by doing them because they're timeless classics, they're unbelievable stuff. But I think when you talk about the performance aspect of it, it comes from experience, and I think obviously those guys had experience, but when I had it myself, it goes back to my grandparents and my grandmother especially, and my mother. Like, they drove me around the length and breadth of Ireland going to festivals.
Everywhere. I mean, as much as we knew you, David, we knew your grandmother as much, and your mother. They were just. Sometimes I often thought you were an only child because they were always with you at every competition.
Yeah. So like when I went go to a fest, like people would see my grandparents before they'd see me. So like they'd know I was at the fest because of my grandmother. She'd be sitting in the front row every time with her scarf around her neck, and they missed it terribly. But like they would have been huge support of me. They would have sacrificed so much for me to go around the country dancing, and like that, it gave me the kind of experience and the confidence then to take it to another level when I did eventually retire from competition. So huge props to them. I wouldn't be anywhere I am but for them. So and they still support me to this day, even with shows and everything. They travel around seeing me.
I forget what teacher said it. I think I forget what teacher said it to you on one of your posts there, because you post prolifically, and he said, I forget who it was that said to you, David, would you go back and do the Worlds? We pack out. John Jennings. I knew it was John. I was afraid to say it was John Jennings who said, but he echoed really all of our thoughts when he said that, because my God, I know you're most of the time you're doing a shorter segment, but your fitness level looks absolutely extraordinary.
My fitness is good. All I've been doing throughout the lockdown is dancing, so my fitness is pretty good. But I don't think I'd be able to carry out a Planksy Davis 76 if I went up on the stage of the competition. It took me about 6.5 hours to do that little video.
We could give you a little break in between.
I'd need a lot more than a little break.
But what was I going to say to you, David? Bring us back to the start. What was it that, as a boy, and a boy in Dingle, because I know you're from a very Gaelic football and hurling background. You're first cousin of Paul Geaney, who plays for Kerry. And you're very like Paul. You and Paul look very alike. It's almost like you're out on the pitch playing hurling. What was it like as a boy growing up in Daingin Uí Chuis, playing or choosing Irish dancing? I know you played.
My decision was kind of made very early regarding Gaelic football. I was about 7 and I had a choice between going to Irish dancing or Gaelic football. Naturally wanted to go to Gaelic football because I was a lad, and I went there and I was told I was too young and to come back the following year when I was 8. And in the meantime, my sister won a medal and a trophy at a local fesh, and all I wanted was the medal. So I said the quickest way of getting this medal was Irish dancing. So
you're a medal hunter.
I was a complete and utter glory hunter, and I went to get the medal, and that was it. I was hooked after that, and a year later, I'd never played much Gaelic football growing up. I was mad for hurling. I absolutely loved hurling. My grandfather then is from Tipperary, so always growing up it was hurling. So yeah, I came from more of a hurling background.
Well, we won't hold that against him.
I tell you, yeah, because you're Limerick.
Yeah, Limerick. We're not too fussed about Tipperary when it comes to hurling.
I don't think many counties are. But no, I loved hurling. It was a big passion of mine. Hurling and soccer were always two big things for me. And Gaelic football, I left that to the rest of the Geaneys. They were better at that than me.
Well, look, David, I've no doubt between your, because you're. I often think that that's what Irish dancing does for youngsters, because it teaches them how to be determined and how to keep practicing and always striving for the best, and never accepting that this is good enough. I want to be better, and you have to work and work and work and work. That work ethic is put into you from dancing, and I think it carries into your social life, into your school life, your academic career, your work life. And I think you would have probably been great at everything that you did.
Yeah, I suppose like you talk about the work ethic there, I think Irish dancing teaches you an awful lot of lessons. The journey itself through competition is a lot of ups and downs, a lot of bad things happen, a lot of great things happen at the same time. So it kind of teaches you how to handle emotions. I think you grow up an awful lot quicker in Irish dancing than you do when you're playing a team sport as such, especially via the solo dancing. You kind of have to learn to control your own emotions. You're depending solely on yourself, not on the rest of your teammates. So I think you do grow up an awful lot quicker when you're in Irish dancing. But yeah, I think the opportunities it gives you is not something else. Like, I think it also puts you at an advantage then to take that work ethic you have from dancing and put it into anything you want, because you know how to get there, you know how much work you have to put in, you know the sacrifices you have to make to be successful at something. And yeah, so that kind of helped. I would have always been a great student at school because of that.
Yeah, and I think sometimes, you touched on the fact that you were a solo dancer, so you're most of the time, unless of course, I was a solo dancer most of my dancing life, and you kind of think that being a solo dancer, does that make you very, very insular and not able to be a team player? But it's the exact opposite, because you're conscious that you have to work and work and work and work and work, and you're doing it not just for yourself, you're doing it for your family, you're doing it for your school, you're doing it for your teammates. And but what was your first medal?
First medal, I
because you were bound to remember that, seeing as that was what drove you to go into Irish dancing.
It was my first fesh, the easy reel, pretty much. I actually started in Cogal, which is the other opposition.
Did you, David?
Yeah, and tell you the funny story about it is I never actually knew I was in Cogal till I was about 15. And so I was telling somebody the story, and they said, "Oh, you were in another organisation." I hadn't a clue. So yeah, that tells you how
it's all Irish
oblivious
dancing.
I was to the whole thing.
It's all Irish dancing. I just don't like. Yeah, I like to think of us all as trying to promote the one thing.
Oh, absolutely. I
Irish
see,
cultural dance.
especially nowadays, I absolutely see no difference between either of them.
No. And
So
but
yeah, that was my first kind of side of things. But
and
I went
when
on then to win a trophy, and I remember my first trophy because when I went to bow, I hit my head off. I was that small. It was lying on the ground, and it was one of those perpetual trophies. And when I bowed, I hit the top of the trophy. So that was my first trophy.
and when did you realize that you were actually, or when did your family realize that you were going to be not just win one world championship, but to win 5 of them, plus all the
uh,
All Irelands and the British Nationals and Great Britain's, and there wasn't anything you didn't win.
I suppose credit to my grandfather there. When I was in that kind of realm of competition, it was mostly like local people you were competing against. You were allowed to compete in the older age groups, and I was kind of progressing throughout the older age groups. And I kind of had this plan in my head that I'd pick one person off each time, and I'd pick off this person, then I'd go up to the next age group and I'd try and beat the person that was winning that, and then I'd try and beat that next person, and so on. And then my grandfather said to my mother, you should take him into the school in Tralee because he can go and do the bigger competitions. And by the bigger competitions, we weren't thinking World Championships or All Irelands or any of those competitions you mentioned. We were thinking the Munster Championships. And so he decided that my mother should bring me in there. I was distraught because I was leaving all my school friends behind, and I was going into a complete world unknown to myself. I didn't know anybody in the class. None of them were from my town. And so, yeah, that was kind of the first kind of hard adjustment that you had to learn to kind of adapt in there. And I was kind of a shy personality as a youngster. So that was kind of the first stumbling block. But yeah, that was when I transferred to Rincoy and Reacta, and that was the start of it. And I think I did my first Munsters about 8 months later, and I won it. And I think that was when my family kind of said, you can do pretty well in this if we keep going. And
Jimmy has an extraordinary ability with boys to bring the best out. It's a very natural, very traditional style, very masculine style that he has, and he's such a lovely man too, do you know?
Yeah, he's like, his personality kind of comes through mostly. I think he's so easygoing, and he's kind of when I think of him, I think of the old dancing masters, like as in it's like it just flows out of him. You know, it's so easy for him to he doesn't even teach, he just tells you, like as in it's really hard to explain it, like, you know. It's amazing to watch him dance because I mean he's not relatively young now anymore, and he can still dance to what he could do 50 years ago.
He helps you to live the dance.
Oh yeah, and like, you know, between himself now and Donny Golden, I think the two of them are the king of the cross keys.
Absolutely. And I always did lots of rocks and cross keys.
Yeah.
And they were always, and I look at Dan, and when I'm looking to make sure that when you cross, that it's not just a scissors, that it's actually a cross, and that you end up, you roll back. Yeah. And you know, and you know, you look at that, and I see that in Jimmy's. They're just so traditional, and so.
Oh yeah, he's had great success throughout the years with boys as well. Like I mean,
he's just
phenomenal lads, and he has 2 young lads now, the 2 Kenny brothers, who are, I think they're only 9 and 11 or 12. They might be a little older than that now, but yeah, like I mean, they're phenomenal. So he's going to have another burst of lads coming through again. So yeah,
he just
keeps on going. So he does.
Yeah, he just seems to be, and he has, as I say, he has that real Kerry traditional.
Yeah.
That real traditional style, and I love it. It's just, there's a lovely flow to it.
So easy to watch.
But what does your parents think of it now, of your success? I mean, obviously, hugely privileged, hugely proud, but you know, have they realized they created a monster, because you've gone on you've gone on to just this is your life now. If they ever thought you were going to be a doctor or an engineer, they can forget it, you know.
Oh, they have many words for me. I don't know if a monster is one of them, but I'm sure it's close. But yeah, it's like, I mean, I went on to do economics and maths in college with the idea of going into stock markets, and that idea is totally gone. I don't think I'll ever do it. I've just gone on now so far with dancing that it's never going to leave my life.
You could make a lot of money in the stock markets.
Yeah, I know, it's not half as enjoyable though.
It's not. It's not, but that's a very good point, David. I mean, Irish dancing is something. I mean, I'm dancing since I was 4, and and at every level as well. Okay, I didn't win a world championships, but I qualified for every world from the time I started competing at the worlds, and was 3rd in Munster in my region many times, but in the top 3. But to get to your level, the amount of and not even just to get to the level, but to stay at that and to want to stay at that, it's an addiction. Yeah. It goes beyond just wanting to dance or just dancing. It's a total addiction. And I think we all have it for dancing at different levels. You know, you try to get away from it at times, but it draws you back in.
I'm addicted to competition in any sense of the word.
Yeah, I mean, me too.
No matter what it is, if you're going to tell me you can't beat whatever, and it could be anything, I will try and beat it. I'm obsessed with competition. I mean, I'm very
competitive edge.
Yeah, I just have a competitive personality. I mean, like, I know when to stop too. Like, I mean, but yeah, I mean, I do have a very competitive, and I think that was definitely carried through in my dancing, especially in the older years. Say from about 16 years of age to when I eventually retired at 19, 20. They were extremely competitive years. I was really driven. I was really determined. And that really came across in those years of my dancing, because I was on another level to what I had been at the years before. And that's when I really started to move away.
But what was it that drove you, David? Was it the dancing itself? Was it the being on a stage? Was it the buzz of the? I know from my point of view, when I was competing or when I was in shows, I loved a big audience. Some people they were happy when they saw a small audience. I wasn't. I liked the audience. I could be as nervous as anything going up, but the minute I was up there, it was like another beast, if you like, because I liked performing. And was that with what gave you the buzz? Was the dancing, or was it a combination of the dancing and the reaction to you? Because the reaction was extraordinary when you would dance.
So I suppose it kind of stemmed back to like a bad period in competition I had. So I think about the year 2011, 2011 or 10, I think you judged the Worlds, did you?
I judged the Worlds then.
2010 was my worst year at the Worlds, and I was in between two minds whether to give up or not. And then when I decided I wasn't going to give up, it was the first time I decided I was doing it for me, and I wasn't doing it for anybody else, only for the pure fact that I wanted to do it. And I wasn't no longer doing it for my mother. I was no longer doing it for my school. I was no longer doing it for the fact that I had to do it. It was because I was purely in love with the fact that I wanted to do it one last time, and I wanted to give it one last go. And I put all the eggs in the one basket and kind of worked towards that. And then I think you touched on this, the reaction you get then when you kind of hit that level where you've put in that ridiculous amount of hard work and you go up on stage and you get that reaction. I think it was for the first time I realized I was performing to an audience, not to a set of adjudicators, that the adjudicators to me became an audience member. And that if I could impress the audience, I was impressing the adjudicators.
I just want you to remember, I gave you first.
You did. So like, I suppose kind of the reaction you start getting then, like I started looking at it as a point of view as it was a performance more than I was in a competition. And then I started trying to win the audience every time I go up. So I was trying to impress the audience, and be it via the best tricks or the best moves or whatever it was, I was always trying to impress the audience. And then towards the end, I think that's when I started to, the reason I retired is I stopped wanting to do that. I stopped wanting to be in competition. I wanted to go out on a stage and perform. I wanted to do the performance aspect where we touched on Gene Kelly and Fred Astaire. I wanted to move out of the realms of the rules of the competition, and I kind of wanted to just have fun with it on stage, and I kind of wanted to let my personality come across, because on stage in my shows I've quite a cheeky personality. I'm a messer, so that comes across big time. So yeah, it's like there's a comedy skit to everything to do with whatever I do performing.
And your age group and your competitions at the World, they're all extraordinary dancers.
Oh yeah, Jesus, I had some of the best against me there. Joe Bitter was like one of the stars of Jig. He was one of the reasons I am the dancer I am today. I mean, when he moved to John Kerry, I thought it was game over. Like, John Kerry's one of the best choreographers in the world ever.
He's just truly amazing. But he's more than that, he's a lovely guy.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I mean, what he does with his dancers is incredible. So I mean, like, I always, and then I had Maguire O'Shea against me, who I think is another one of the greatest schools.
He had a lovely style, lovely
Sherman,
style.
And Connor Simpson. I'd Fred against me. I'd so many great names that have gone on to dance with Riverdance and kind of do their own thing as well. And so I also had like the top schools against me. So like, I mean, that definitely egged me on, that like I was against the big dogs, like that kind of made it more competitive for me. I almost saw it as a challenge, that I was taking them on more than the dancer. So that was kind of fun. That was a fun aspect to it too. So yeah, that kind of drove me on as well.
Yeah. I mean, the little vignettes, we'll call them, that you do on YouTube, and you put up your show reels and that, they're just extraordinary, David. I mean, you look at them and you think, that's not right. Nobody should be able to actually do that. For people who are not dancers or know nothing about dance, the looseness of your ankles, your ability to your rhythm, your sense of, it's all innate. It always was. You've grown. Your stamina mightn't be able to get to to do whatever Planksty Davis, but the feet are just extraordinary, and I dare say you would, if you just actually wanted to do it.
If I wanted to, that's the thing.
The audience would encourage you through it, would pull you through it.
I'd love to. I'm a bit old for it now.
No, but I mean, you should. Who was it that said on Facebook one day, we're sick of the small little, would you put the whole lot together, David, for us? I can't think of her name, but she said, just put the whole lot together, David, put the whole Planksty Davis.
It took me about 6.5 hours to do the set part. I'd hate to see how long it would take me to do the full thing once through.
We just want to see one complete set. You're just about. We were just about. You had 8 bars or 16 bars done, and and suddenly it was gone. And I was like, for God's sake, will you just keep going?
That's all I'm able for these days. I'm getting old.
16 bars, and we're like, I want to see the rest of it. And then you'd get the other 16 bars, and we were just. I was thinking, like, could we just patch the whole thing together?
Patch the whole thing together, yeah.
It's just.
The problem is that the one you saw is probably about take 175 after about 6 hours of trying to do it, because I wasn't
your
happy with the rest
stamina
of them.
should get you through 16 hours of the step, or 16 bars of the step. Your stamina. I don't believe it for 1 minute that you don't have the stamina to do the whole set. The way out of it.
Keep you guessing.
But what was I going to say to you, David? You then, once you gave up on you won on Jig Gig.
That's right.
You tell us about that.
So that was I was about 16 years of age. It was 2011, many moons ago now. And I decided that was the year I kind of decided I was going to do it for myself. And the kind of opportunity.
That was just after the Worlds in Belfast.
Yep. And I was like, why not? Sure, look, we'll have a go at it. What's the worst that can happen? And I think it was my kind of first step outside of the realms of competition that I had to choreograph my own routines. It was going to have to be to different music. It couldn't be just an ordinary Irish dance. You know, you had to use kind of, to stand out from the crowd. You had
And
to
the
use
Santa hat looked great on you.
yeah, it covered up the haircut at the time. I don't think it was a very good haircut. not as if this one's any good either. A home
Who's
haircut.
cutting your hair? Somebody's cutting it.
My sister. We bought one of those hair trimmers and we're going at it every week.
She's doing a grand job.
She's all right. I'm not going to say nothing.
No, keep her on.
But so yeah, I done Jig Gig, and that was kind of the first step out of the realms of competition, and that was a huge experience. And it was back to back. It was like every week you had to come up with something new. So it was a good pressure, and it was a good learning experience. And I always remember how I made up the routines was my mother. We had this little practice space at the time. It was a small little place, and she would stand there and she'd just turn on the music and she'd say, "Just dance." And we hadn't a clue how to choreograph stuff. Like, I'd only just started kind of choreographing stuff. And she was like, "I'll tell you what I like." And then I do something and she go, "That thing you did over there in the corner 5 or 6 seconds ago." And I'm like, "I don't know what I did 5 or 6 seconds ago in the corner." So we learned the hard way, and we just started putting up a camera and we'd watch back in the camera and say, "We'd like this and this and this and this." And then we just piece a routine together out of it. So looking back on it now, it's very choppy, but we didn't do a bad job in it for kind of a first time around experience. So there you go again, my mother, a massive influence in it. And that was kind of my first experience of choreographing stuff. And it's led now to being able to choreograph a set in about a half an hour. So yeah.
How does that happen? How does that happen, David? How do you take me through without giving your state secrets away? Take me through the mind of David Geaney. Help me to delve into the mind of David Geaney. Because
the problem with the mind of David Geaney is there's too many things going on in the mind.
Well, declutter your mind for a second and try and bring me through what the process that actually, do you ever rest? Because, I mean, can you ever sit down and watch a movie that's just for no other reason but just to chill out? If you're watching a show, Fred Astaire or the Nicholas Brothers, you're inevitably inspired, and and as a dancer, you have to get up and you have to create. That's not relaxing.
No, I think when I watch something, I don't just watch it. I kind of take it apart. And how do they do that now? Or I don't look at it from a dancing point of view. I have a huge passion for video editing. And like, I'm a complete amateur at it, but like I've definitely improved over the case of the lockdown series. But I would kind of look at the editing, or I'd look at something. But touching on the sets kind of scenario, the first thing I do is I look at the backing of the tune. So I don't actually look at the melody, I look at the backing, and the backing chords, be it a piano or a guitar or whatever, I always kind of look at that first.
And you take the rhythm out.
The rhythm comes out of that. Then I'll obviously dissect the melody and pick out the parts where they're either doing a long note, or if I feel they're going up with the notes, I'm going to go up in the air. If I feel they're going down, I'm going to go down with the drop heels, or
and that's
whatever.
What I love. Tony Tyrrell, the late Tony Tyrrell, I still find it very hard saying the late Tony Tyrrell. He always said the one thing he loved was to see a Kilkenny Races or Bonaparte's Retreat or Downfall of Paris to reflect the music.
Yeah.
And where it goes down in the music for the steps to go down, and where it comes up for the steps to rise and fall, so that you're actually telling a story with your feet. That doesn't always happen, David.
I went so far on my second last Worlds in Boston that I went to the library in UL and I looked up the story of the Bonaparte's Retreat.
Yeah.
And I did so much research on the actual tune and why the tune was written in that way, that I was going to create the dance to symbolize that story. And I actually remember coming off the stage at some fesh somewhere, I think it was in Belfast or something like that, and an adjudicator came up to me and they said, "You're after studying that story, aren't you?" And I couldn't believe it, that they were after seeing the story in the dance. And that was like the one thing I wanted them to do. And it went over 99% of people's heads. They just saw Bonaparte's Retreat and a good dance.
No.
I was like, that 1%, I was like, who's going to understand what I was trying to do? I was like, that's all I wanted. And and the worst thing about it is I never filmed the set and I have no idea what I did. So the set is completely gone, and I wish it's the one set I wish I had a record of, because I spent so much time. I actually spent more time on studying that set than I did on my modules in UL at the time.
I understand that. I look back and I think, God, I don't actually have anything of, very little of me dancing apart from at weddings. And when I was in Bunratty, there wasn't really, people didn't have mobile phones at the time. 92 when I left, 93, 92. And, you know, we didn't really have mobile phones, and you regret that. And it's something that you should be very glad that you can have a mobile phone now.
I think it's only after coming in the past couple of years. I mean, even when I look back and when we were in competition, I'm kind of happy we didn't have it at the time. But like Instagram and Facebook and stuff like that wasn't as big back then for posting videos and stuff like that. So I mean, like, we never had that. So I mean, I don't have records of much of the dances I did in competition. I think I had my last set dance ever in 2014. But like, now everybody's stuff is documented. I mean, your current set dance is on the internet. I mean, the one you're going doing in the world is already on the internet by some dancers, you know. So I mean, like, they're kind of lucky in the one sense that they have a record of all that stuff. I don't. A lot of my stuff is lost. I can't remember it, and it's kind of a big regret of mine that I never filmed them. And even if I did film them, they're probably filmed on some camcorder that we don't have anymore, that God knows where it is in the attic somewhere.
And when you were offered a job, and I only know you were offered the job on An Jig Gig, because of the translation in the bottom where it translated from Gaeilge into Béarla into English. I think if I was there, if I was on the Aran Islands or I was in the Gaeltacht for maybe about 6 months, I'd probably be okay. But you know, when you're in school, you learn. Unless you go to an all-Irish school, you tend to. My mother didn't speak much English like you said, or much Irish, I should say, when Dad came home from England. So like you said off camera, you don't speak much Irish now, which you should, David. I'm sure, you
absolutely.
know. But because she started to get a bit rusty in her Irish as well. But thanks to the translation at the bottom, you were offered a job. Did you take it up at all?
Funny enough, the job I was offered at the time was Brandon. I don't know what he was alluding to at the time. I wasn't exactly sure what he was alluding to at the time with the job offer. But you're actually getting an exclusive here. But the Jig Gig has now actually turned into Unreal Deal. So Unreal Deal, I think it's running about 3 years now, 2 or 3 years. And it's new. It's the new name. And I'm actually going to be on Unreal Deal this year as part of the presenting crew.
And I'd just like to say that that's an exclusive to LearMedia.tv, and
there you go.
It's Showtime.
That's the first time I've told anybody. So yeah, I'm going to be on. So the Brown Dawn's actually on the show as an adjudicator. So
he's fabulous.
Yeah, so it's come full circle. So,
full circle.
Yeah, I was a competitor on Jig Gig in 2011.
That was an inspired question on my behalf.
There you go.
Just came out of the ether. I don't write any questions down. I just sit and listen and talk. But David, tell us about Britain's Got Talent. Yeah. Oh, I was screaming at the television and Simon Cowell, the horrible man.
Britain's Got Talent. Oh boys, the best and the worst thing I ever done. So
well, it got you out there.
Yeah, so definitely the positives are the exposure is massive. There is simply I would struggle still to find something with the exposure. I mean, I think the night I watched it, there was a couple of million people on it. I'm not exactly sure what the figure was. I remember saying it on the night, but a couple of million people watched it. Now, I'm not going to find a couple of million people just on the street. So yeah, I mean, I was exposed to a complete different audience, and what I got out of it was exactly what I intended going in trying to get. So yeah, I got everything I possibly wanted, and anything after that was a bonus. The negatives, there are quite a few. So when I went in, they approached me initially and I said no. I was in my final year in UL in college, and I was in my final year exams at Christmas, and I said I can't. They wanted me to go the following week. I had an exam at the time and I was like, I can't. Then they came back and they were kind of a bit more persistent, and they came and said, will you go and do the auditions? I think it was in Manchester or London or something like that in February.
Gives you a little insight into how it's done. People don't just turn up and just... appear?
There are different stages, but they told me that they'd seen a video of mine online, and they said you can skip all the audition stages and go straight in front of the adjudicators. Now they do that with a lot of people. They kind of do scout
The
a lot of talent.
adjudicator. Do you think you're at an Irish dancing competition?
I don't know what else to call them.
Well,
the judges.
The judges.
But so yeah, I went in front of the judges with. So I went in with kind of an idea of this multiplication background with me on the backgrounds. Now, the original idea I saw was actually Beyonce, and she did it. I think she did it at the Super Bowl. I could be wrong. Actually, I could be totally wrong there. It could have been something else. But I saw a video of her doing it, and she walked down an aisle, and the next thing, about 100 Beyoncés came out either side of her. And I was like, that's class. I was like, I want to do something like that. So that was the idea. And I came up with a very, very small scale version, because I was like, I'm not going ripping her off, but yeah, that's my inspiration behind it. Like, and that's what I wanted to pull across. So I had a track made at the time, because there was a copyright issue at the time, and we had to do original music. And I did the original music, and went in to, you go in the day before, and they just run all your stuff, and they kind of put you in camera, and they make you do these interviews that you see. You know, you're not waiting in a waiting room all day long doing interviews. Like, some of the interviews are done the day beforehand, some of them are done the day of, some of them are done actually after you're done performing, and you have to act like you haven't been on the stage yet and stuff like that. Yeah,
all smoke and mirrors.
Yeah. So I mean, it's a great experience. It's cool to see how it's done, and and all that. But yeah, it is all smoke and mirrors. And when I went on initially, I was told to take the routine I was done and do this. And they showed me a video on the phone, and they said, come back tomorrow and do this, and we won't do your routine today. And I was like, you want me to get that done by tomorrow? And they showed me Beyonce's routine. And I was like, do you want me to basically rip off Beyonce and do the exact same thing? And they were like, yeah, we'll look after it. And I was like, so that was the first kind of step. I was like, that wasn't exactly what I wanted to do. But anyway, they were impressed with it. They thought it was great. I was happy. Got through to the next round, which was the judges' deliberation. Then I got sent through to the live semi-finals, which I was delighted with. If I got onto the live shows at all, I was like, that's an added bonus, because not many Irish dancers have got to the live semi-finals. It's extremely hard to get there. It's a really hard act to sell to Britain's Got Talent. I think on Ireland's Got Talent, naturally, you have an Irish audience who love Irish music, who love Irish dancing. In the UK, there's a smaller percentage that love it, and it's kind of harder to sell it to the vast majority.
And then the fact that the Irish can't vote.
That's it. So yeah, so I was never going to go and win it, I don't think, because, it's harder when you don't have your own kind of being able to support you. I did get a huge amount of support from the Irish in the UK.
Irish in the UK.
They were phenomenal. Like, I mean, all the Irish dancing schools over there were phenomenal and everything.
They're amazing.
Huge gratitude towards that. But yeah, I suppose I was at a disadvantage that a lot of my own home people couldn't vote and stuff like that. So that was obviously a major blow. But I was delighted to get to the semi-finals in any case. But they gave me the idea of what will I do. I wanted to kind of stick to my roots. So anybody who knows me, and anybody who doesn't know me, I should say, we own a pub, and I dance in there every night to live music. And
on a little piece of little square of timber.
1 meter by 1 meter platform, and it's a pure kind of get the crowd kind of going kind of an atmosphere. It's a huge tourist attraction, and it's
and it's also a nod to Sean-nós.
Oh, absolutely. Like, I mean, I do a lot of tap, I do a lot of Sean-nós. Yeah, so like we would have live music all the time in the pub, and I grew up with it. I grew up in a pub full of traditional music and ballads, and it's my number one genre that I ever listen to. It's my number one genre on Spotify for the last 10 years. That'll tell you how much I listen to it. So yeah, I suppose I would have always been influenced by that, but it's a huge attraction, and I kind of wanted to recreate that when I went on Britain's Got Talent. And I pitched the idea of a kind of an Irish music session on the stage, but recreating the kind of bar look towards it. And because that was me. Anybody who knows me, that's me. That's what I do. That's what I love to do. And it's my favorite aspect of dancing is actually dancing in the bar, because it's so raw, it's so intimate, it's so not perfect. It's everything that's like, it's a real.
It's back to the soul of dancing.
It's back to the roots, yeah. It's back to the roots
and the soul of our culture here in this country, and especially when you're from, especially from the Gaeltacht areas.
Absolutely. And I think because I've grown up with so much music around me and kind of so much of some great musicians I've played in the pub down through the years that I've been fortunate enough to dance with, that I wanted to recreate that. And they said no. They wanted me to dance to Somewhere Over the Rainbow. I personally really don't like the song Somewhere Over the Rainbow.
I don't know how they could have suggested Somewhere Over the Rainbow, because there isn't, to me, there isn't a 4/4 or 2/4 or 6/8 time beat
No.
in there that you can.
And there's no connection to what I do either. There was there was nothing for me to believe in. There was nothing for me to kind of, I don't know.
You have to feel it. You have
like,
to be inspired by it, and it didn't inspire you.
If you don't believe in a project, you're not going to put your heart and soul into it. And I found that really hard to do with Somewhere Over the Rainbow. They also kind of had me dance in a way that wasn't me. Like I said earlier, I'm a messer. I'm cheeky on the stage. My tongue is out. I'm laughing. I'm messing with whoever's on the stage. I mean, like, and I'm having fun with the audience or whatever it is. Whereas this one was it was about being intense with the music, and it was about arm movements that I don't normally do, and kind of, it was very, very much out of my comfort zone. And the stage was very bare. I kind of wanted to fill it with a lot of stuff, because as a solo dancer, to fill Britain's Got Talent stage and the auditions is one thing, because nobody expects you to do a big production. But when you go into the live shows, you kind of need a bit of a production behind you to impress people. And some of the most memorable performances on those talent shows, like, for example, George Sampson's Singing in the Rain, had a waterfall in the middle of the thing. It had street lamps. It had benches. It had men reading newspapers like the old films, and a person walking across the stage with a dog. It had a kind of a set to it. Mine didn't. It was just a screen, and it was totally not what I wanted to do. But yeah, like I say, it was just kind of about pulling the positives from it. When Simon Cowell said, "I actually hate that song," I felt like laughing, because just before I went on stage, someone said to me, "Oh, the reason we gave you that song is because it's Simon Cowell's favorite song." And then I went on stage and he said that I hate that song. I felt like saying I do too. But you have to shut your mouth, like, you know. So yeah, so I mean, like, it was amazing. I don't regret it in the slightest bit. I also think it kind of taught me an awful lot of lessons again on how to handle things. And I think if I was to go back again, I would be a lot more stronger in my own opinion. So by putting me dancing to Somewhere Over the Rainbow, straight away they would have had people talking about, why did he put that song?
Why did he choose that?
Why this? Why that? Why this? And it just creates this conversation online, and it creates ratings for TVs, and that's where they're kind of.
And did you get much of that, David?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I would hand on my heart say, I'd say 95% of the Irish dancing community were probably looking at me going, what the actual hell was that?
No, I loved your dancing. Your dancing was always mesmerizing. But I have to be honest, I thought, what in God's name has he chosen Somewhere Over the Rainbow to dance? Because there's no beat in it. There's nothing that you can actually do a rhythmic dance to.
And like, the funny thing is the majority of people don't know that you don't pick the stuff. You know, they don't know that I didn't pick that song. Someone gave it to me. And like,
look, David, I think anyone that knew your style of dancing and knew any dancer in Irish dancing would know that they'd never choose, when they had the whole world of music to choose, choose something that didn't flatter their rhythm.
I think what they were also kind of doing is they were probably, like, I mean, you kind of see a lot of dancers dancing to pop music nowadays. I do it every now and again. Like, I just released one today with Billie Eilish's song Bad Guy with Stephen Carlin, the Fesh musician. So I like to do it every now and again. But like, again, it's not hugely a passion of mine. I'm not a huge fan of pop music in general. So when I did go out and dance to pop music, a lot of my close friends were kind of like, where did that come from? Like, I mean, like, why didn't you dance to what you normally dance to? Like, and like a lot of people who don't like traditional Irish music, they always end up saying that was actually a good track that you ended up dancing to, even though it was traditional Irish music. Like, I mean, it's just what kind of interpretation you put on it or whatever. So yeah, I mean, if I could go back now, yeah, I would do something different for the semi-final. Absolutely. I would recreate my pub and do my Irish music, but it obviously wasn't to be.
Or what you did in the university.
Oh,
I mean, that was a most beautiful tribute to everything that's positive about Ireland and all our positive success. Absolutely.
I'm a
Beautiful.
very proud Irishman. Very proud Irishman.
Yeah.
But so yeah, that probably like that. I was hugely passionate about that. Again, I think when I'm hugely passionate about something, it comes across in a project because I really do put time and effort into it. And that project you're alluding to there is was the 100-year anniversary for the 1916 Rising, and we kind of everybody was kind of focusing on 1916, and everybody was focusing on the song Grace, and they were all kind of focusing on the one thing. And myself and James Devine decided
Fabulous
we're going to
dancer too.
fabulous, and he's a great man to work with. So we said that we were going to focus on the 100 years since 1916, and we went from
Totally
19,
inspired, David.
yeah,
Totally inspired.
it was amazing. It was an awful lot of hard work and to get an awful lot of permissions to use all the stuff. But yeah, we went down through the years. I must have watched every Reeling in the Years episode for about 10 times each, I'd say. But yeah, we went down through the years and we picked out some of the highlights. I mean, you couldn't pick all of them. There was stuff we left out that we would love to have put in. But we just picked some of the famous iconic moments down from 1916 to the peace process right up to 2016 at the time. You know, I mean, we tried to bring in everything we could. But yeah, it was a pretty amazing project at the end, watching it back. And a lot of people, they didn't just comment, wow, that was amazing. It kind of evoked emotion in them, and it kind of made them think about it. And the replies we got underneath the video weren't just, wow, amazing. They were, this made me proud to be Irish because, and then they listed a reason they were proud to be Irish.
It instilled a sense of patriotism in people. I think it evoked so much passion and so much Irishness.
Absolutely.
You know, you knew instinctively that this was David Geaney and James Devine, and this was what they wanted to do.
Yeah.
It wasn't. There was nothing manufactured in it. It
No.
was coming from your heart, and I suppose seeing all and knowing you through the dancing, the competitive world, and seeing what you do since. You know, you could see that this was a natural progression. This was who David Geaney is about, and James Devine for that matter.
Yeah.
You know, but
I think, and when I do something that I'm not convinced to it, it's so obvious. And you know, it's because I'm passionate about Irish music, the Irish language, Irish history, anything to do with Ireland. I love it, and I think anything I have done since, it's always been linked back. And it's just a huge passion of mine, and it's something that I've always developed, even into the developing our own show. It has to have the history of Ireland in it. So the show we have, Velocity, myself and James Devine, it's based on James Devine's original show called Tap Era, and the concept is the evolution of Irish music and dance throughout the years. So it starts back with Sean-nós, which is the old style, goes down through the dancing masters, it goes through the competitive scene, which is the next progression. Then it goes into like the transition into the theatre world, which would have been Riverdance era, Lord of the Dance era, and all that. And then it would have moved into like the modern interpretation, which is our online world now that we live in, where social media and videos and all this high-end production that people are doing. So yeah, it's the progression throughout the years, and it's a great show. So yeah, it's something we're really passionate about, and that really comes across.
And it's you know, I mean, people who talk about Irish dancing and talk about sport, and I like to think of dancing as not being a sport, but being an art form, because you hear a lot of people saying, oh, it's another sport. It's not, because it's not the fastest person, or the people who win aren't always the fastest, but they're the people who actually, their performance, it's very much a personal opinion in a lot of cases when you're judging somebody, or it's very much once everything is all there, once the dancer is technically exceptional, it's all down in a lot of cases to personal preference, style and preference. That's not the case in a sport. It's usually the person who is the fastest, or the people who score the most goals, who are actually the winners. How they get to scoring the goals is arguable in some cases. You want to shout at the refs and things like that, because it's not always, you could argue that it's not always the people who deserve to win. The referee can play a part in that, and I'm sure Kerry people know very well how to shout, "Foul, referee, foul!"
only at the dubs. Only at the dubs.
Only at the dubs. Well, we all shout at the dubs. David, your progress now, you're doing a lot of collaborative work with people, and but you've done some extraordinary dancers, and that's the way you're hoping to do some more.
Yeah, it kind of started off. I mean, when we went into lockdown, the thoughts of not dancing for unknown territory, I suppose we didn't know it was going to last 3, 4, 5 months, whatever it was going to last. So kind of not dancing for a while was kind of a worrying sign. And I was like, sure, look, we'll do a bit of stuff on social media. And I intended to start off with doing, I had an idea last year that in 2020, I would do, every week I would do a new dancer with a new video with a new dancer. And I got too busy in January and I actually never ended up doing it. And then when lockdown came around, I said, look, sure, we'll do 7 videos. And we'll do 7 dancers. And I picked out 7 dancers and I said, that, in fact, 7 dancers, I think 3 of them have appeared so far. The other 4 haven't appeared yet. And other random ones have appeared since. But yeah, I started off, I said, I'll do 7 videos with dancers and I'll do 7 videos with musicians. And I started off, I think, on the 28th of March or something. And it's turned into this massive following now that it's everybody's following them. The support for them has been overwhelming. I've danced with the top guns of Irish dancing today. I've also danced with some of my favorite dancers from that have finished and now TCRGs and everything. Trace Carter.
Yeah, I saw Michelle's.
But so,
wow,
yeah.
That was impressive.
Yeah, so I've had a load of fun with it. But yeah, I've got a load more coming.
She was great.
Oh, unbelievable! I like those dancers now. They've challenged me so much, especially the girls, because obviously beforehand I wouldn't have done a lot of toe work and I wouldn't have done any block work or anything like that. And I've kind of learned how to do that now, and I can't get it out of my head now. I keep doing it every time I go dancing. So I
can't see David doing block work.
Oh, watch any of the videos and you can see.
I have seen it. I've seen it.
It's mad. But like that, they've challenged me so much, and I think my dancing has improved so much over the last 6 to 8 weeks.
Yeah.
That it's unbelievable, and it's amazing to dance to them, because there's no way I'd ever think that I'd do a collab with the likes of Alliyah O'Hare or Erin McPolin or Trace Carter for that matter.
But I actually get Alliyah's name wrong all the time. I always call her Alliyah because I keep on thinking of the male Elijah, and I keep on saying Alliyah, and then you're saying Alliyah. So I said to you before we started, how does she pronounce her name?
I think
Alliyah.
it's Alliyah. I'm nearly 100% sure it's Alliyah.
Alliyah. Well, if she's out there listening, and no doubt she will probably be, and Carol and et al. We apologise if we've pronounced her name incorrectly, but I would have pronounced it as it's spelt.
I feel her pain.
Aliah.
I always get called Geaney, and I'm actually Geaney. But
That's
yeah,
right.
so I feel her pain.
A colleague of mine in here in the station, you'll excuse him, he's from Cork, and he calls your first cousin Geaney.
Yeah, I always get called Geaney. So
I
yeah,
keep
it's actually
saying no,
Geaney.
he's not. He's Geaney.
Yeah. Yeah, always good to put that one on record.
There you go. Well, David, how have you thought that they're going well for you?
Absolutely.
You're going to continue with those.
The reaction has been amazing. Like, I mean, I think Erin McPolin's video got 1.7 million
That
views
was
or something.
Fabulous.
Which is, I mean, that was the first time. I've had videos before that have got a couple of million views, but not on my own page, particularly the video that I've uploaded. They've either been on Irish Post or Irish Central, and they've gone viral over there. But this was the first time I got a couple of million on my own page. But every other video, I mean, Alliyah's got 385,000 or something, and every other one after that got the bones of 200,000 views. So, I mean, they're going extremely, extremely well. They're really popular. I thought people would be bored of them by now.
No.
I'm trying to keep them interesting as possible, but they're amazing dancers. It's the dancers that are making them.
But I absolutely, all of you. It's the collaboration. It truly is the collaboration. It's. I suppose, in one sense, it's the sum of the parts.
Oh, absolutely.
It's the sum of both parts. Without them and with you, it's the male. It's the yin and yang.
Yep. So, like, I mean, bringing it together is kind of like when it gets really exciting. The like kind of 3 or 4 days before you kind of film it, and like you've pretty much all of it made up, and like we split the workload 50% each. So, I mean, like, you're not just seeing my stuff on there. I mean, some of the stuff is mine, some of the stuff is theirs. So, I mean, it's exactly what it says. It's a collaboration. So yeah, I mean, when you see that when you learn their stuff and you see them do your stuff, I get a real kick out of that. When I send them stuff and then they send it back to me, and sometimes they do it better than me. I remember sending Erin McPolin something, and she sent it back, and I looked at it and I goes, gee, she did that better than me. I goes, I have to practice that now. I goes, and it was my step. So that's a real good, I get a real buzz out of that. So I think like Leanne Nelson touched on it. She said, it's obviously a passion project of yours. And like it is, I love seeing them being able to do everything. And like, I love seeing the end product and going, like, I love seeing how different each one of these dancers are. Like, I don't think you could compare.
All their styles are very different.
Oh, so different. Like, and they all have different strengths. And I think that's what's made them so appealing. And everybody's kind of seeing something new every time. And while they're seeing me every time, they know what my style is. They're seeing something new in the dancer with me. And I think that's what they're getting a kick out of. Yeah. And, that's what's enjoyable about it.
Yeah. Well, David Geaney, it's been exceptional interviewing. It's been exceptional watching you dance throughout your dancing, your competitive career, and it's been truly special to watch your progress and to watch your career unfold, doing what we all love and what we're all passionate about. My grandmother was a dancer, an Irish dancer and traditional singer, and the passion followed with me. My cousins were champion dancers, and it's just and it's followed with me all my life. And and I see that passion in you, in just...
It's about kind of passing it on to the next generation. I mean, I'm not a huge, I don't think I'll ever be a teacher as such, but I do have a passion for passing on what I've learned down to the younger generation. And especially in the world we're living in social media now, if that's how you do it, pass down to generation and inspire them, then that's...
But I would argue that you are a teacher, because any time you stand in front of a camera and you perform the way you perform, you're teaching children so many things. You're teaching them the importance of hard work, because they know, even at the youngest age, they know that they're never going to be David Geaney unless they work hard, that it's all within their grasp, but hard work is important. You're also teaching them about determination, about stage presence, about performance. And you don't have to have a title after initials, TCRG or whatever after your name. When you're actually performing, you're teaching them as much, if not more, than any one of us could teach inside in a class.
I know. I just have so much respect for teachers that take a young child from the age of 4 or 5 and bring them all the way up to a world champion. I think that's the commitment, and kind of that's amazing to me. That's inspirational to me.
I mean, imagine the young David Geaney who walked into Jimmy Smith's class.
I have no idea.
And what he brought from that.
It's amazing.
What he created from the seed. He created an oak.
I know but it's amazing, just like that you can do that. I mean, it doesn't happen overnight. And I think that's one of the biggest things you could ever teach somebody, is it doesn't happen overnight. It does take a lot of determination, perseverance, and all that. But yeah,
a lot of oaks and forests have been, we're sticking with this metaphor here now, a lot of oaks and forests have been created through good teachers.
Absolutely.
Worldwide.
So much respect for it. It's some commitment.
It's a passion, and it's it's an addiction.
It's an addiction, I think it is.
And long may that addiction be, may we inject that drug into our systems.
Oh, keep doing it.
We're really on the metaphors now here today, aren't we? Well, David, thank you so much for sitting down and talking to me. And you've sent me some wonderful little videos that I can put into the thing. And
thanks for having me.
You might close us out with something in Irish. Go on.
Well, geez, what'll I say in Irish?
Just say thanks very much, and until the next time.
I'm going to say a saying my grandmother always used to say when we go to feshes, and when we'd leave Dingle in the car. She'd always say, "Gomermid bio and town so arish," and that it would be always that we'd be alive the next time this would happen, and we'd be alive and healthy, etc., etc. So to finish the program, Gomermid bio and town so arish.
Mila Boicas.
A new era for Irish dance. Epic. Spectacular. Unmissable. This is Celtic Tap.